Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to another Saturday night of Shadow Whispers in the Night with your fabulous host, Jenny, and my fabulous co-host, Nando.
Hello.
How good evening. Doing? I'm good. Busy as always.
Good,
Are we ever not busy?
No, not really. We've always got something going on, haven't we?
No, like I said earlier, if we got paid for it, I'd be making the money.
Oh yeah, we would be able to retire by now.
Exactly. And like I said last night in one of the shows, that my former life, apparently I live in a castle. Now this is my castle. What happened? I want to go back into my former life. This is reality, where I live in a smaller house, extra people in it. So we're going to have a fantastic show tonight. We have a fantastic guest with us. We have Barry Fitzgerald joining us tonight. I'm going to read out a little bit of a bio. Irish born, only the best. Irish born. Barry Fitzgerald has over 35 years experience within the world of the supernatural, in which he is known, and has taken him to new levels of intrigue and mystery. Appearing in all 56 episodes of Ghost Hunters International, he headed a team in the American NBC owned by Sci-Fi Network and explored a quandary of the paranormal and supernatural phenomenon around the globe. His natural progression led to the writing and publishing of books on subjects within his field of research, such as The Complete Approach, The Influence, My Home is Haunted, Now What? I do need that one. In the Midst of God's Banshee Searching of the Side, I think I'm going to say that right. A series of investigative stories into the Irish mythology and folklore called Legend Seekers, fictional trilogy. The Council of Three, and his recent work, The Deception of Gods and Men. He was recognized for his work in the paranormal world and received the award of Paranormal TV Personality of the Year 2016 and 2018 from the PSW based in the Netherlands. Barry's research has taken him out of his comfort zone and into the areas of Irish myth, legend, and folklore that has led him into the shadowy depths of the underworld, not only in Ireland, but around the globe, uncovering shocking similarities between cultural encounters with the unknown, and discovered that line exposed a global network of doorways which could expose the true gods behind the veil. This discovery had led him to directing new internet documentaries, including The Serpent's Mound, The Mystery Bodies of Peru, Part 1 and Part 2, followed by The Dark Entity in 2018, a documentary which explores the new angel cult and true beginnings that hid behind the job title. His most challenging cases drove him to explore the Mayan underworld in Belize, known as, and that begins with an X, and I don't know how to say that, but I'm sure Barry will tell us, and I see him laughing in the background, because I tried to say it earlier and I kind of didn't get it. Anyhow, Barry will tell us that. Leading the team into the further death of the Mayan version of hell and hiking the Drakensberg Mountains in KwaZulu National in South Africa, to investigate a cave associated with the ancestral worship for the Zulu nation. That's amazing. Recently, his most challenging research comes in the form of Irish mythology, and it's exceptional, confrontational, and direct of the old. Okay, so that's. Oh, I'm always read out.
I think that's you done for the night, isn't it, Jen?
Good night. Thanks for joining us.
That's it.
Listen, I'm going to waffle on all night, so we're going to bring Barry in. Good evening.
Hi, folks. Thanks very much for having me on.
Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for being here tonight with us.
You're very, very welcome.
How is it? Now, I got that word wrong. You're going to have to correct me. The Xibala. Xibalba. I knew the X would have been a different. Xibalba. So that's it. Listen, we have a lot of questions for you. The question that it's most commonly asked all the time. I know, I know it, but you tell everyone else how you got into the paranormal.
I think it's much the same as everyone else did. They grew up in a house with paranormal activity, and I was of no exception. And I had my experiences there, and at the time I never gave them much thought, because I was a young child then.
Right.
And my father sat me down in front of the television and indoctrinated me into Star Trek and Doctor Who and things like that. So of course that naturally inspired me further. And it was years later then, whenever I went back and revisited what had happened in the house that my parents finally said to me that the house was haunted. It was known as being haunted.
Yeah.
And I explained then what I had seen. Because up until then, we never knew. As children, my parents always kept that away from the kids.
Right.
Yet the kids were having their experiences. But it's different times, And then from there, then of course my natural curiosity as to who, why, what, and when naturally drove me to delve into things, and and embracing my Celtic heritage. I really embraced this aspect of the other worlds, and I wanted to know more.
Hi, Bridget. Hi, Nigel. I think we all, when we were younger, we all got, I would come from a family of 11, typically Irish, and I was that odd child. If I wasn't a twin, I'm that different child. I would have been like found or whatever. So things would happen. Yeah, things would happen when we were younger. Anything that happened that when we were younger within the paranormal that frightened you to the point, like really was negative. Like, when we have experiences with the paranormal and so on, and they do frighten us when we're younger. Anything happened
there are aspects of that, of course, that did happen over the course of growing up. But I think as children, predominantly up until the age of 6, the child's mind's going to be predominantly within the theta brain rhythm, which is perfect for a child to commune with whatever is coming through that particular doorway. But also between the ages of 7 and 13, there's a filter that thickens over the eye that narrows our spectral resonance. So as adults, for a majority of people, we can't see what we saw as children. It's just not feasible anymore. The filter's just too thick for it. But I think there are combinations there. There are biological combinations of things that aid a child to do what a child does. And for many times, for many occasions or instances, children have their experiences. They go on about life and they forget what happened back then. But sometimes things last a little longer. And that can be problematic sometimes, or it can be a steering mechanism to put us onto a path that we needed to be on.
Yeah, I was going to say they're the lucky ones. Maybe some of them think they're not lucky, but I would consider them lucky. And I did say before, I think I know when I started off in the field, and I tell you, I was like the blind leading the blind. I would lead you into a cave smelling of sulfur with horns sticking from a wall. It's okay, come on in. Now, as I got older, I'm still the same way.
Yeah.
A little bit better. I mean, my mind is open more. When I say I hear more, it's like I get names. I could be sitting in a room, say, Patricia, Patrick, John, Tommy, is it you? Are you here? And and the guys look at me saying, Jenny, is it happening again?
Yeah.
But when we do the playback in the recorder, I have been right. And like I said last night, my work here is done. I got a name in my mind. We got it on the recorder.
Yeah.
I'm going to start charging. So I think when it closes, but then it opens again, because you're in the field a long time, so you let yourself be.
Yeah, there are techniques in which you can embrace and utilize that when you're investigating or general life. You move into a place and suddenly your senses perk up and you go, oh, I'm not alone here. You can either choose to take a moment and communicate, or you can say, back off. I have my own things to do.
Close it again and just say no. The guys look at me and laugh at me when I get names, and I have a name and it stuck with me in one location, Petulia. And they look at me and say, Jenny, really? And I'm like, I'll find her. I know she's here. I will find her. The name is, when it's just stuck in your head and it won't go away. Maybe it's because I want to prove it to them. And hear it. But I know when we were out in the field, out in location, and I said, I think there's someone with an R name, and I was going Rosemary, Rachel, Rebecca. but it's an own name. We listen back in the recorder and you can hear Rebecca.
Mm.
And I'm like, I told you. I told you. I'm not going crazy. And things like that. So yeah, things can open up again. Or like you said, you can choose to close them.
Mm-hmm.
That you don't want to go along with it.
Whenever I wrote the book, The Influence, which examined how attachments corrupt our bodies to their advancements, and how we can turn that around. But initially, whenever I was writing the book, I was clearly warned not to become too bright or they see you. And I think when we use our abilities, that's one thing, and we have to remember that bright lights attract flies.
Aye.
Just to ask, you were saying about the experience started when you were quite young in your home. So, do you remember the point when you revisited the paranormal as you got older? What got you back into it? Was it something that happened, or was it just reliving what you experienced as you were a kid?
No, I think the curiosity was generally always there. There was no real catalyst to throw me back into it per se. Now there was a few instances in my teens where I was definitely challenged, but no, I think that natural curiosity was there all along.
Cool. And being like going into it as a profession, how did you get yourself into it? So what kind of things did you do? Did you have someone that mentored you into the paranormal, or how did you teach yourself to do what you do now?
A huge amount of it was self-taught. And there are obviously, there's a lot of reading to be done. And there are great teachers out there that are now gone, but their words still exist within the pages of their work. And there's been some great information there, and some great researchers that have done amazing work. And the likes of Jacques Vallée is another perfect example, though he's still with us. But Jacques has done amazing work within the world of ufology, but also the greater world of the paranormal, because like Jacques, we've identified that there is a common thread that runs through a huge amount of the activity. So there are a huge amount of people who influenced my perspective, but a lot of it was self-taught. A lot of it was, for me, it was important that I had to experience the phenomena. For me to experience it, then I was able to break it down, and that went right across the board, and even to the point where I was having those experiences with the incubus succubus attacks, but during that particular experience, I was able to break it down. I was able to analyze it, and I was able to see its weakness. So that was very, very important, because from my experiences, I hopefully was then able to push that across to folks who needed to know answers to how to try and stop that and understand the doors that were being opened to allow this to happen. So, and that to me was important as well.
Definitely. I know you've obviously investigated in Ireland. Where's your favorite place to investigate?
I love the west of Ireland.
Yes.
But I don't think I would have one singular place that would be my favorite. Outside possibly of the cave systems here in the west. I'm always amazed by the activity that happens there. So outside of that, I suppose I would have to tip my hat as well toward the ancient Neolithic passage chambers. I've amazing experiences there as well.
Can you tell us a bit about it?
Well, to the point where these people appeared, and it was at that particular important time in the evening. Timing is everything. I keep repeating that time and time again. And I had made my bed on the remains of the old Neolithic chamber, and I was just waiting on the sun to finally drop down behind the hills.
Aye.
When I turned around, and there was 3 people climbing onto the other passage chamber beside me, and I thought, where the hell did they come from? But clearly I was able to see them. I was able to identify what they were wearing and everything else.
Okay.
And I got up then because I wanted to speak to them, because this was during the one of the Legend Seekers stories that we were working on. And this place was known as being the Hill of the Fairy. So these 3 people appeared on top of this ancient passage chamber, and I thought, who the hell are they? But I finished writing what I was writing in my notebook, and it was only seconds. But in the process of me turning my head, because it was the only thing above the wall, because there was a bit of a wind coming in, and I knew that they had saw me. I didn't see their reaction, but I knew that they had saw me at that particular moment. And I thought, well, I must speak to them and ask them, have they seen anything unusual apart from my head above the parapets? And I turned to get up, and they were gone. And I thought, Jesus, did they end up going into that passage chamber? Because I thought it had collapsed, but it mustn't have. I must be wrong. And I went across, and the passage chamber was sealed. So I could clearly see 6 miles in any direction of this place. And I thought,
oh my gosh,
where did these people go? They're wearing primary colors. I should be able to see them clearly, but they weren't there. So I noted it down anyway as being unusual. But I went back to base camp, and I was working with the camera, and the damn camera that I was using, every time I switched off the flash, it kept coming back on again. And what I didn't want was the locals in the area seeing these flashes going off on the top of the Hill of the Fairy. They would say, oh, but Jesus. And I said, well, I don't want to be doing that. So I was cursing at the damn camera. When I looked up, and there was 2 people walking away from me. I thought, there's no way that they could have got past me, because my peripheral vision is perfect. And yet they were walking clearly. They had passed me. But what was odd is that they had walked through this flock of sheep who were sitting on the floor. Now, if I walked toward the sheep would have scattered.
Yeah.
But these 2 walked through. And I thought, this is very odd. And I had binoculars around my neck, and I looked at the binoculars, and I only saw 1. And I thought, wait a minute, are these bloody binoculars broken? Because whenever I dropped, I could see 2. Lifted the binoculars again, 1. And I said, what's going on here? Lifted the camera and took the shot. The camera only saw 1, but yet clearly I could see 2. And I thought, am I getting double vision? What's going on here? But one of them was shorter than the other person, was wearing a different color jacket. So clearly it wasn't double vision. It was something else that was going on. And in those particular moments, there was a lesson in that for me, in that they can't lie to the camera, but they can affect the conscious brain of what we think we're seeing. So there was a valuable lesson in that. And, whenever I started then looking at other phenomena about how it pulls back from the cameras, because we can't see what's there, where we can be easily manipulated. And now there's a particular phenomena that I've coined. It's called the 20-second rule. When we're having an experience and an encounter with these particular types of energy, if we do not listen to our seat of our instinct, the seat of our discernment within the first 20 seconds, then that can be overridden. And there's a biological response that's going on to the interaction, and we can be fooled within, if it goes any longer than 20 seconds.
Okay, so within the first 20 seconds, go with your gut instinct.
Absolutely, your body will react.
Yes.
And people will ask me, what's of all the different bells and whistles and flashy lights, what's the best piece of equipment you can have? If you understand your own body and you understand the signals that comes through it, it's the best piece of equipment that you have.
For sure.
And there was some experiments that was done into biofeedback. And it was interesting to see the outcome of that, because there were people were rigged up to a computer system, and the computer randomly selected images of kittens and babies laughing and all that wonderful stuff. And as the photographs were recirculated and reselected by the computer randomly, not by a human intervention,
Right.
what was noticed is that our skin resistance lowered because we liked what we were seeing. There was no threat there.
Yes.
So our skin resistance lowered. But the moment that the computer selected a photograph of a very nasty car accident, our skin resistance shot up. We didn't like what we seen.
Right.
And what was interesting as those experiments continued to roll out is that the body started reacting milliseconds before the computer selected the photograph.
Oh my
In other
God.
words, the body was detecting what was coming and altering its adjustment to prepare us for what was about to happen. In other words, we were starting to detect the future milliseconds ahead.
Okay.
And that particular response instigated our fight or flight. And that in itself is the manifestation of our soul, if you like. It's that warning aspect. Be prepared that something is happening here. And 75% of houses are sold on feelings. Well, what is it whenever we walk into a room and it's just 4 plain walls and we say, oh, I like this. This is nice. It feels nice.
Yeah.
Or likewise, we could walk in and we go, no, I don't like this. And we leave without making an offer. What is that feeling? That is your gift of discernment. That is your instinct. Your soul is channeling these and manifesting through your body and telling you if you react and you get a bad sensation, the adrenaline starts getting released, the hair goes up the back of your neck. That is your intuition telling you, be aware. And if your body reacts within the first 20 seconds of the encounter and it reacts in that way, you got to be careful.
Oh my gosh.
And what tends to happen is that after 20 seconds, that can be overridden. So we're then pushed into a theta band rhythm where you can have false memory implanted, hypnotic regression, or hypnosis can also be applied at that particular instance. Fear can also shut us down so that we can't move. And we see this time and time again. Medjugorje is a perfect example of that, where the 3 children who saw this white entity on the hill, and the 3 children were stunned in fear. They couldn't move. If an entity is coming to me and it means no threat, it does not need to tell me, do not be afraid. If I'm being afraid, there's a reason for it, and you're damn well lying to me. That's the 20-second rule. If our body reacts within the first 20 seconds and our fight or flight cuts in, there's a reason for it. We need to listen to that.
And see, they laugh at me when I say I don't want to go to the bathroom on my own on one particular location because I know there's someone there. And they laugh at me because I don't want to go on my own. So if somebody says I'm going to the bathroom, wait for me, I'll come with you.
It's amazing that I've been in groups of people and paranormal activity has happened. And when it happens, maybe you're in a group of 10 people, it's amazing to see or feel how much you feel alone within that group.
Yes.
It's a strange experience.
Yeah.
With you're saying about connecting with spirits, right? And this
soul,
that I
soul, not spirits,
souls. Okay.
Yeah.
How do you determine if it's a good or a bad? Do you know? Is it a sense of smell, a feeling? How have you picked up to know what you're dealing with? Because a lot of people go on investigations and they don't really know what they could be dealing with. So how do you determine what you're dealing with? Do they give you a sign or a sense?
That comes with experience. You're not going to learn that within a week. That takes a long time to master. But also with that, like the book that I wrote there, The Deceptions of Gods and Men, I tend to rule it now. I suspect everything until proven otherwise. So there's always caution there when I'm dealing with what's coming through. And humanity, I see this time and time again, in that when we're dealing with something that's coming through, and possibly maybe people are using Ouija boards or they're using some type of bells and whistle design that's out in the market now. That they're saying, well, we've made contact with this, and is your name Michael? Bing, bing. There, it goes, and all this goes ahead. But usually, what tends to happen is that possibly they're told 4 lies and 1 truth. And what we tend to do is ignore the 4 lies and just concentrate on the 1 truth. Oh, it's okay. No, it's not okay. If it lied to you once, it's going to damn well lie to you again. And that caution needs to be instilled back into the research field. No, don't get me wrong. There are great encounters out there to be had, but there is a huge amount of deception, and we need to really work on that and expose it.
Aye, definitely.
In regards to the sensation that comes within the 20-second rule, and also what tends to happen is that groups nowadays, they tend to meet up before they go to various events or haunted locations, whatever the case may be. Maybe they meet up in a fast food restaurant or something, get something to eat, and then they head out.
Yeah.
Refined sugar is our nemesis. Refined sugar can actually shut down our gift of discernment.
Okay.
I'm with you on that.
That can be exceptionally detrimental, especially when you're blinding the best piece of equipment you have before you go to an investigation. You can no longer tell whether this is right or wrong.
Yeah, I understand that. I remember only 2 weeks ago, I was out in location, and myself and the group said, right, we're going to be here for the night. We're going to grab some food beforehand. And we got ordered food in and so on. And I said, oh, geez, we're all going to need a nap after this. It shut us down. And let me tell you, it's a location I've been doing for the last 6 or 7 years, and I know the place. And yet, when you think I know it, but there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more to it. We had no energy. We had no energy. We got 1 or 2 things. We got 1 or 2 things. We were tired because we had takeaway food, and we were tired. And I totally understand that.
There's a lot of sensitives within the field who will see themselves reaching for the likes of chocolate. Unconsciously, they're reaching for chocolate. Now, they could be at home. They're not during an investigation. I mean, in their daily lives, they're starting to reach more for sugar because the sugar quietens the impulses. So they become, and that becomes more problematic to the medium. Initially, at the beginning, it was fine. It was just something to take the edge off. But the problem is that we of course, in itself, sugar is exceptionally addictive, and can really become a problem. And that then blinds us to what is coming through, and looking in particular for those little pieces of information that we tend to spot that goes, wait a minute, you're not what you say you are. And we tend to miss those.
So now I have to tell my team, give me your day diet of no sugar before an investigation. To mail me what you've had that day. Energy drinks or anything like that. And I know one of the girls, Lulu, brings an energy drink and it says no sugar. I don't believe it. Lulu, no more monsters. And eat 12 hours before we do an investigation. I know we were out the other night and we didn't eat. And it was a great night. Same location. Great night. So now, there we go. You heard it from Barry. No sugar. I want to know.
Well, even from the perspective of the religious rites and things like that, I'm not going to get religion involved with anything, but before they go into spiritual battle, they'll go into a fast. So there are reasons for that.
So that's it now. No sugar. Louise is at work. She's watching.
So before you start an investigation, Barry, when you go out on location, do you have a routine that you would follow the same thing every time before you start an investigation? Like, is that what are your preps? Sorry?
Note the quickest way out.
Always.
You know what? you're the first person. I say that all the time. You know, if I'm going to go somewhere, you know, like we've gone into tunnels, and the first thing I always have in the back of my mind is the way I come in is the way I got, and I'll be the first one out. So I do take note of that, like the quickest route out of there.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm glad I'm not the only one that actually says it. But
Nando, that's you, Nando. We know you. Nando will be the first one out of the building. If he hears something, he's the first one. Now, I haven't worked with Nando, but himself and his lovely wife Sarah, and we were talking last week, and Sarah was saying, like, oh, Nando has anything, he you know, if they're sleeping overnight, he's up and he leaves. And I'm like, but that's the best part.
Yeah.
But Nando exit.
I think for me, I initially got into this, Barry, with, you know, because my wife's been doing this for a number of years now, and I got to be honest, at first I didn't believe it, you know, because, and I'm not going to go too much into it, but sometimes when you watch things on YouTube and you watch on TV, sometimes it does give that feel that it's not real, if you get what I'm saying. And it wasn't until I experienced something myself that sort of triggered it. Like, there was an evening, and I've said this to Jenny many times before, my kids were in bed, Sarah was in bed, and I sometimes stay up and I watch a bit of TV. And I don't know if you know, but do you know, like those big fire doors that you've got to really push the handle down so it opens, so it's closed. So I know no breeze could whoosh that open. You know, the door handle literally pushed down and flew open. And I kid you not, I saw a full apparition of my grandfather walk through, and he come and sat next to me. And I know I was awake because I've never run upstairs so fast in my life to get into bed. And that is sort of triggered that sort of, like you were saying, it made me a sparking interest to what is real and what isn't. And you sort of
an interesting thing that you just said there. You said that you ran upstairs.
Darren must have thought there was going to be a disco happening the way I ran into the bedroom. But
why did you run in fear? If you saw your uncle or you saw your grandfather, but yet you ran in fear?
Because
why, Nando?
Good question. Because I know it was, looking back on it now, you know, I think, you know, he wasn't there to scare me. But I think because I've never believed in it, I used to, not being rude, now I've got a lot of respect for the field. But before, I think where I didn't understand it, you know, and I apologize if this offends anyone, but I don't mean it. I used to go, oh, you're going to go and play Ghostbusters with your friends, you know, because I was one of those people that, but since then it just, I don't know why it scared me though. I think because I never expected it to happen to me, and the way it
well,
did,
you see, here's the thing in regards to that aspect of understanding the impulses. Your body reacted because it may not have been your grandfather.
Oh, right.
Oh,
look at
okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I never thought of it like that.
You're welcome.
Send him noise. There's Brian's in the house. How you, Brian? Hope you're all right.
But yeah, that sort of got me, you know. But then when you're, I'm sure when you're getting into the field and you're learning, you start realizing like things that you don't agree with necessarily, or it doesn't work for you. So going through this process for you, what kind of things would you say are your key ways of working? Like with equipment, do you tend to use any equipment, or do you rely on your own instincts?
No, I do use equipment, but I prefer equipment to do what it's designed to do. You know, and I prefer to let equipment do what it's, and that I don't have to be at it all the time. I think the problem that we face is that we're trying to understand this this invisible world, and we're trying to use instruments that detect things in this world. And what we tend to do is if we're holding, I see a lot of apps now which are completely disastrous, which are available on the phones now, and people are running around with it in their hands, and they're watching what the screen's doing. What it actually is doing is locking the brain into the left-hand hemisphere. Our instinct resides within the right-hand hemisphere. So our world today is designed to keep us locked consciously in the left. We're not meant to drift into the other side, that other invisible world. So if we're using too much equipment, that can keep us locked out from having that experience from the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to try and find a balance there, and I find too much equipment can really create an imbalance.
But that I always say that the more you have out, the less you get. Like, because like you said, you're concentrating on the equipment and not what's happening in front of you. That's why
there are other aspects to the equipment as well that I think we need to address here, in that the likes of full spectrum cameras. I was the one who created that particular title, and the only reason it was called a full spectrum camera is because I wasn't allowed to use Fuji because of copyright.
Okay. Yeah.
It was a Fuji camera that I had altered to allow me to see a greater band of the spectrum. And they said, well, we can't call it a Fuji. You're going to have to call it something else. And I went, full spectrum. So that's where it come from. But the principle behind the full spectrum camera was to mimic the child's eye. It was to be able to see into the environment without creating obstacles within the environment. And nowadays we have full spectrum cameras that are available on eBay and things like that. And you have to use these huge banks of lights that is already destabilizing the environment. That's not what the full spectrum camera was designed to do. Because when the manifestation begins to occur, whether it's coming through the ultraviolet or whether it's coming through the infrared, either opposing light spectrum, whether it be ultraviolet or infrared, can destabilize the manifestation. So that's not what we want to do. And we wonder, why are we not getting anything in these cameras? Well, number one is that you don't understand the field, and infrared can actually burn the manifestation. So the likes in the show that we were filming back in the day, I was continually at the camera operators, can you dial down your infrared?
Okay.
And that we were having an experience from that. But I have to say, and kudos to the cameraman that I had, Snapper. He will forever reside within good thoughts within my head, and may he rest in peace. But that guy knew whenever I was out there and I began to work in that particular environment. And Jenny, you'll understand this, when you go into a particular room and you begin to work, he got that.
Yeah.
He knew that I did not like residual light, and especially from the viewing monitor that was on the cameras. But he sensed it. He knew whenever I was going to work, because I didn't have to say anything. He just quietly closed the cover over, and I was immersed in darkness.
That's so good.
That allowed me to work, and it was absolutely spectacular.
And it's so easy when you have someone like that working with you. That makes it a little bit easier. That they got it. They're with you on the same level, which is perfect.
Yeah.
Absolutely perfect. Is there any location that you that I know I've said this before, any location that you would never go back to again? Okay, I'll continue with that question.
There was one here in Ireland, actually. And it's known. We encountered it on the Legend Seeker series, and we called it the Island of the Dead when we had our encounter. 10 years later, that we actually found out that that's exactly what it was, an Island of the Dead. So its impact, stretched a long way, but the encounters that I had on that island scared me so much that I said, if I ever come across that again, we're done. That's it. I'm out of this game. I don't want anything to do with that again. It was so intense.
What happened?
And it's an island where you would have gone to commune with. It's wrapped up within serpent worship and ancestral worship. It's the old pagan ways. And whenever I say the old pagan ways, I mean the old pagan ways. I'm not talking the Druid stuff and all that stuff. 500 BC. I'm talking about thousands of years before that. And this was a place that you went to get your advice from the doorway, the gatekeepers. And whether you were kings or whether you were priests, they came from across Europe to go to this particular place in Donegal. And we, you'll understand this, Jen, as well, that you hear many stories and you think, oh, yeah. We went completely unprepared.
I was planning on going to Donegal for my summer holidays.
It is a nice place generally.
It is a fabulous place, but no, I just say, hey, mommy will be back later.
But this location was tough. And we've come across other locations as well. There was one, in fact, that we were writing about. And in Legend Seekers, I have to say, all the places that we experienced, all the experiences that we had, all the history behind it and everything else, we put down in the book. We even put down GPS coordinates so people could go and experience that for themselves. And there was information in there who you need to contact to get permission and everything else. And it was all above board. But there was one place further down the country, I'll say, and it was on top of a mountain. And this particular place was known for a long time for a place being very troubled. Okay. In fact, to give you an example, there was people killed on site through accidents, and new equipment that was being brought onto the site failed to work, and they took it off the site and it worked again. Brought it back, still didn't work. And there were electronic issues, technical issues, and there was a particular path that this energy walked. And it went from the tool shed across the yard and into the series of offices on the other side, makeshift offices. And one of the guys was in the tool shed and he was sawing timber when he was clubbed in the back of the head and fell forward and took his fingers off with the saw. The figure was seen walking across into the offices, and they gave chase. And when in the offices, no one was there. Now there was an Italian lad. He ended up staying. He was a driver for the company, and he stayed in the apartment above the offices. He brought in all sorts and manners of religious iconography within the place because he felt safer there. When he went to town and came back, even though the door was locked, the religious statues were smashed to smithereens. In fact, powder. Now he was sure someone of this company was doing this, and it got to a stage where even the door was being taken off the hinges eventually, and it says this can't continue. So they brought the church in. The church exorcised the place 4 times, and on the 4th time, it says we can't do this again. We've come across this in Africa, and our best advice is leave it. Just shut up shop. And the young Italian lad, he brought in dogs. He brought in German shepherds, and they were trained to do the job that they were trained to do. And this thing murdered the 4 of them.
Oh wow!
It was like nothing I had ever come across before, and I ended up going there with the co-author, and of course my sidekick Max, my 4-legged companion, with a huge big white dog.
Yeah, German Shepherd, yeah.
Him that picked it up first. And whenever it came to the edge of the tree line, and I couldn't see it, but he could. And I was watching him, watching his reactions whenever it finally made itself known to me. And that's something I would definitely advise against. And that was the one story that we didn't supply GPS coordinates for because we shouldn't be there.
Oh my God. So basically both that place up with steel doors and chains and never to be go into. See, but that's me now. I'd want to go in because I'm curious, Jenny, and that's why I get myself into trouble. It's like when I was in a location up in County Antrim, Shane's Castle.
Oh, yes.
Fabulous. I started off there. Let me tell you, if you're going in deep in the paranormal, that's what I started. I used to do that location every single month for 6 or 7 years, if not more. Religiously, we did Shane's every single month, maybe twice a month, with a different team that I was on before. Let me tell you, when you're learning or training in with the paranormal, that's a bloody place that will kick you up your ass and make you respect. And let me tell you, we were up one night and we were doing, the team founder was doing a reenactment. And they didn't like him in these tunnels. They, you know, have you been in the tunnels?
Oh yeah, many times.
Yeah, so it's okay. Let me tell you, they used to have down to the very bottom of the tunnels with the infrared camera and so on. So you'd have to walk down one by one, stop in the middle, turn your torch off. They really had the torch on to see where our footing is because it's on level, and then we stop for like 5 minutes to see, and you could feel as if someone was sniffing around you, you know, because you're vulnerable. And I always said, is it possible to see black against black? Because when you're in those tunnels and all the lights are off, you cannot see. And many times we've had bleeped out editing many, like, oh my God, yeah, pucker, you know, because you're standing, you're walking into people and they frighten the bejesus out of you.
Yeah.
And so we did a reenactment, and geez, I was only new in the field, and I said, you know, he said to me, Jen, you're going to provoke. I said, well, I don't like to provoke. I don't want to provoke. It's not okay to do it. I was new in the field, and we, you know, he had guests with them and whatnot. So I did. And, you know, there was army men there, the Spanish, French, and so on in those tunnels. So of course I did. I wouldn't, you know, if you told me to do it now, I'll tell you where to go. But so I did what I had to do. So coming to the end of the night, we were splitting up. I had my group with me. So I was going back down to the area where we had done the provoking. That's where Jenny got a lesson. Walked in, and I never have smelled it to this day. The smell of sulfur, burnt air in your nostrils. You know when you get an irritant on top of your throat and it reacts. All of that. It was a punch in the face. I've never smelled anything like it to this day. And I wish, you know, if others who never smelled it before would, you know, get inside my head and understand how thick it was. Yeah. So we walked in, and one of the women said, you know, I don't think we should come in. And I'm like, well, no, we now know they're here. They're pissed with us. We're going to keep going in. This is why I'm like the blind leading the blind. I will get them all into trouble. So I said, no, we're going to keep going in. She said, no. We ended up kept going in and walking up towards where we had done the reenactment in the priest area where there's a hole where it was thrown down. And then I decided we had public with us, and I'm like, fine, for the safety of those, we'll leave and come back out. So I did say, I don't know why we're leaving if they know we're here and we know that they're here. So for the sake of the public, we left. And within 15 seconds of saying that, it was like the Matrix. I couldn't bend my back now today, but back in the day when it was like the Matrix, where something ran face to face or ran through me, where I had lost my hearing. I closed my eyes, and I was kind of like going back slowly, like the Matrix, and coming back up like it was underwater. Yeah. And I kind of linked to my friend, and I said quietly, get me out, just take me out, get me out. And then I rationalized my head to say, don't panic. You lose it if you panic. Just get the people out. It took me about a month or two to go back. And when I went back, I apologized. Oh, yes, I apologized. Yeah. So it's a learning place where to go if you're starting off in the paranormal. Go to Shane's Castle in the tunnels. Yeah,
tunnels and caves can be very, very tricky because the laws that tend to dictate the surface don't apply when you end up going to the caves and the tunnels. And the likes of incubus, succubus. If you go all the way back to the likes of the incubus and succubus. These ancient Semitic demons, if you like, they attack 9 times out of 10. They'll attack women more so than men, but they attack whenever the iron count is low. So they will wait, and normally what they tend to do is wait until the women, especially, enter their monthly cycle and become anemic. So that is the doorway to allow a physical attack to happen. Is that the iron drops in the system? Iron, although you could wear an iron amulet around your neck or whatever, but iron when you descend into the underworld no longer works. So there are laws down there that we're still trying to come to terms with and trying to understand. But iron is one of them. and can be a very tricky place to deal with. I was in a whenever I was in Zabulba, we had our experiences there, and I came back and I went to an old mine in County Antrim. Now this mine had been closed for 45 years, and I got the permission to go in, and there was 3 other lads came in with me, one at the door, to make sure that there were no cave-ins and things like that. And I went in with the camera systems and everything, and I got photographs whenever I was in. But it was interesting that when we were in, and this particular mine goes around, I think it was 3 miles under the mountain, and the camera was pointing forward into the main shaft, and I pressed the camera shutter to take the shot, and everyone went quiet. And it was in those moments that we heard this thing calling to us from within the mine shaft to go further in. Now, I had encounters with these before, and I knew that you really don't get involved with these. And this particular phenomena continued. Now, the 2 guys were convinced that has to be our guy at the door. He must be in the cell phone or whatever the story is. Something is wrong here. It has to be him. And when the camera shots were all taken, and we were starting to head out, I was the last one out. And the 2 lads exited pretty quickly and started interrogating their friend at the door, to which he says, no one was here. And I wasn't on the phone. I was very quiet. I backed into the corner, and that was it. That's where I was. But on my way out, there was another shaft to my left, just as I was about to come out, and the voice was there asking me to follow it. And I went, nope. And
my curiosity would get me into trouble, because I probably would.
Well, you see, in Zabulba, whenever we followed it in Zabulba, we went further than the general public and everything had been in. But the problem is that when you've got a camera crew behind you and you've got 2 other cast, when we reached the spot where we knew this thing was, it was behind the main turn of the tunnel system, which was only 50 yards away. We could see it, and we knew that this thing was behind there. It was that close, we could almost touch it. But the floor of the cave dropped off. We were already waist deep in water, and the floor of this cave dropped off into a depth that we couldn't see the bottom. And that's what we had to cross to get to this other side. And I looked around at everybody and I said, we've gone far enough. This is enough. And the cave guides that led us in there, they were saying, do not follow these things, because our grandfathers have told us about these. They will kill you. And I've had many encounters with these right across the world in many different cave systems and tunnel systems. So I think there's further investigation needs to be done, but be very, very careful with it. It's a different kettle of fish. It's not like the surface dwellers.
See, what I'd like would be to find out what's happening in it from my living room and watch it on TV. So anybody who wants to cross those deeper waters to go and tell us what happened, I'll just be like out with a glass of wine, waiting to hear what happened.
And see what happened. You're talking about like the incubus, succubus, and I've heard a lot of stories about them. I've done some reading on them. But in your opinion, how do you think they get into our world? Is it something that we've done by doing our investigations, or is it like a ritual that someone's done that's allowed them access? How do you think they got here in the first place?
I think we have to adjust our mindset. They were here first, and it's us that came second. But the problem is that we live in a society now where we have to have everything now, and all our information has to be now, and when we open doorways, when we investigate, we tend not to close them again.
Aye.
And that can be a problem. And maybe we go into an old mill or something, and we don't have any encounters there, but we've tried to reach out. We have put the intent into reaching out. We've opened that doorway, but maybe nothing has come through, and we say, oh, there's nothing here, and we leave. Mm. Maybe nothing there that night, but 2 weeks later or 2 months later, that door is still open.
Yeah, sure.
And that can be a problem. And I think today, and more so than any time in human history, we have a lot of spare time, and there's a lot of our spare time goes into hunting ghosts and all the rest, and I think that may have caused an issue, a partial issue there, because there have been things here long before we were.
Oh, for sure. Few places I want to ask you about. Hellfire Club in Dublin. You've been there?
I have, yeah.
I've seen. What did you think of it? I've been a few times.
Personally, I didn't like it, and I think from our physical health, it's probably a place that we probably should stay away from. So I tend to look for places that's a bit more safe, from obviously there's a lot of drugs and things going on down in Dublin, and that can be problematic.
Completely, yeah, absolutely. I remember when I was there, I was last summer, and I had some of my team members with me, and one of them was taking one of the members. There was only 3 of us there in the daytime. I definitely wouldn't. No, I wouldn't go at nighttime. But anyhow, so the 2 of them left the Hellfire Club and went down further afield. I think she wanted to show him some edging or part or whatever. And I could see them, but when they became dots, and I'd come back. And then I turned around thinking, oh my God, I'm in the Hellfire Club on my own. I don't go to the bathroom on my own, okay? Let's just know this. And I'm thinking, I'm standing in the Hellfire Club on my own. So I'm on the 2nd floor. So I'm thinking now I can go down the stairs, but Jennifer's not going to do that. Or I can go through the bars in the window and jump out of it. But I stood there and I thought, if I let my mind know that I know I'm here on my own, like the fear, opening myself to fear, they will know, if that makes sense. Read my mind. So I'm kind of like, I'm okay. I'm a big brave girl.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, I know you're here, but I'm going to pretend that I don't know you're here. And if I know you're here and you know I'm here, then we both know we're here. And then Jenny's on her own. And a man's club.
Yeah, there have been a few more that I've been in, and in fact, I'm investigating a place at the minute down in County Roscommon, and between the ancient gods making their appearance and spirits and UFOs and all that stuff. Everything seems to be coming out of this damn doorway. But you need a boat to access it, and thankfully I have one. But yeah, it's been an investigation ongoing now for the past 2 years. It's stunning, an absolute stunning location, and even to the point where WB Yeats and the what's it called, the Golden Dawn, they even tried to acquire this place. So obviously there was enough interest in it for them to want to access this and gain control of it.
And there's plenty of islands in Ireland, in crooks and crannies. And there is one particular one, I can't remember the name of it, but I can't remember the name of it, but it's like a castle on an island. And I don't know where, I can't remember where it is. And you do have to get a boat over to it.
No, there are many, but there's Castle Island, which is down in Boyle, and yeah, that's an absolutely beautiful location.
It's just isolated. It's just this beautiful island.
And there's another one in Kildare, and yeah, there are quite a few. It was back in the day. It was a great thing for safety to build your location within the island.
Yeah. Is there any places that you haven't been to but you really, really want to go to?
There was one place that I was at, but I never got to investigate it. And it's an old fort up in Donegal again. It's called Leanan Fort, and it's an old fort that was built in, I want to say, the 1800s. It's the majority of this is underground.
I like that.
It is pristine whenever I say it's underground, but I can't find an owner. Nobody seems to know. I've been looking for the locals. I went through the military. I went through the archives, and nobody seems to want to admit that they own this place. But the doors are open. I just go in. I just walked into it off the street, and it's absolutely a staggering place. I never got around to investigating that one.
Huh?
I never got around to investigating that one.
It would be interesting. Anything underground, I love.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just a fixation from. I like it because it's less contamination.
Yes.
Like I know the Shane's Castle was beside Loch Ness. Is it Loch Ness? Am I saying it right?
Yeah.
Loch Ness. Yeah, it's been many years. But it's just any of your equipment shouldn't work under the ground, but they do.
Mm-hmm.
I like all of that. Any man-made stuff. I go by recorders. I'm all about. I love EVPs. I love recorders. That's my thing. Video. I love the video too, but recorders is my thing. I love it, and I've got some amazing EVPs, like mind blowing, and some of them are out of this world. We're literally out of this world. They're just amazing. I love all of the EVPs. Now, your time with Ghost Hunters International, what was your favorite place? I know there's a question up here from Marty. Excuse me, I can't see without my glasses. Marty, you're so knowledgeable. Who was your favorite person to work with on GHI Ghost Hunters?
I still chat back and forward with Mr. Chin, Joe Chin, Mr. P, Mr. Perry, and I have a few conversations there with Miss Ashley as well from down in South Carolina, there was quite a few there. There was a revolving door in regards cast with GHI because it was intense, and when you're traveling that amount, and people didn't really understand that 20 minutes of filming was a week, or 20 minutes on television is a week of filming. So one episode can be 2 locations. That's 2 weeks filming.
A lot.
It's a lot, and if you're down in the southern hemisphere, you don't want to be heading home for the weekend, because by the time you get home, you're going to have to go straight back again. So you're gone for a long time, and when you have family, that can be very, very tough. But there were a lot of locations that did stand out, and one in particular, Dracula's Castle, in the Carpathians. We ended up going to it, but the impressive thing for me happened the night before. I had this visitation, if you like, the night before, and it was this lady who was standing on the back of lions. She was furious, absolutely furious that we were going to the castle. And I thought to myself, I came out of it and thought, who the hell was that? And what the hell was that about? And it was 10 years later that I discovered what it was. Now, during that time at the castle, we went looking for Vlad, and we couldn't find anything, not a thing. And we tried everything under the sun, nothing, absolutely nothing on top of this mountain. But the moment that I did switch the EVP questions, I switched it from Vlad and I switched it to her. And we got one Class A response, which just said, "Leave now." And that was my warning, leave now. And I thought, who the hell was this? And Vlad, of course, his father had signed up to the Order of the Dragon, which is the symbol of the serpent eating its own tail. And that was meant to be, so they say, it was meant to be for the fighting for the Christian church and everything else. But what I did discover is that particular symbol was Babylonian in origin. It was an esoteric Babylonian symbol. Now Vlad would have been open to that because he stayed with the Sultan between him and his brother Radu, were forced to stay with the Sultan. So he was introduced to that particular aspect and heritage of that geolocation. But not only that, but the woman who stood in the back of the two lions was Ishtar, the Babylonian goddess of war. So what on earth were they practicing at that castle? And only 10 years later that I discovered what the hell actually what it all meant. So now, I think about Vlad and what they were practicing back in the day and what behind. So that intrigued me greatly. But there have been many encounters. Hitler, we got to the closest example we got to Hitler was in Poland. And we were in his bunker, and that was an amazing experience.
You were in Hitler's bunker.
Hitler's bunker, yeah. We were in Wolfschanze.
Amazing.
And it was his eastern command post, and I had to keep the plan in my head, because the moment you visualize, or the moment you speak it, it's out. So I had locked. There's a process you can do in which you keep that thought process locked in your head so that it stays there. And I just told people, I want you to take this, I want you to take that, I need you to do this, I need you to do that. So everybody was laid out on the plan. They didn't know what the hell the plan was, but they were told what to do. And we get into Hitler's bunker at a certain time, and I said, now. And we started playing. There was a particular piece of music that Hitler enjoyed. Hitler never slept for the most part during the night. He was up all night, and it was during that particular process when suddenly it took about 30 seconds, and when everything was played out, about 30 seconds, then all of a sudden the place came alive. That was the moment that we got close to Hitler.
Wow.
Or the remnants of Hitler.
That's just crazy. I mean,
that's
even that. I got all this chair. Even that, to be that close to someone of like him, I get myself into trouble, and I have to lock my mouth sometimes. I'm the person that asks questions that you shouldn't ask. I know one of my team members. We were in a monastery, and I'm asking the priest questions, and I did. Yes, I did. And one of my team members was going to train to be a priest. So, like I said before, I kind of do talk about religion sometimes, but I've learned to do it in a way that won't offend people. And I'm not there to offend anyone, but I am the one who asks questions in a monastery that you probably shouldn't, but I do. I go there. A lot of
people wouldn't ask. A lot of people wouldn't ask.
Well, yes. And then when we were doing the playback, and because Aidan from Belfast, he goes, "You're in trouble now, Marker." And I'm like, Aidan, don't say that. Don't say that.
Yeah.
Because we would always get Aidan now. He's not with us on the team anymore, just for a while, because he's not. He's doing other things and so on. But we would get him to call out in prayers in French and German. And because he'd know prayers a lot more better than I would. We had one of the guys, Alan, and I think Lou is still watching, and we were doing a prayer out, and Alan was doing a prayer out, and we had to tell him what the next line was, and I'm like, "You go to church much, Alan?" No, because he didn't know the whole prayer, and you mumble when you don't know the rest of the line, So we went into this monastery, and we'd walk up these steps. It's in rooms in where is it? It's in Tipperary, and so we walked up these steps, and there was these headstones, and I'd say to Aidan, "Why are these up steps and on the ground?" He goes, "They'd be higher." I said, "Right, turn your recorder on. Jennifer has a few questions." I did. And then I was a little bit afraid to listen to the audio, but we got nothing. Probably kind of glad a little bit, but Jesus, now they're telling me, like, go and say 10 Hail Marys and 2 Our Fathers, or you're in trouble. But yes, I would ask questions. And then I'm like, sorry, please, thanks, like I'm really nice, but I ask a question.
You learn from asking questions, and this is something that I keep reiterating. When we make contact with what is beyond that veil, and keeping in mind the level of deception is there. If you have something that is coming through for your betterment, for your better understanding, it's not behind a few questions for clarity. But what we tend to find is that when we become suspicious of that particular energy, it's gone. It does not want to be found out.
Yes,
because
yeah,
its identity, it needs to keep that identity, that mask. And there's a commonality that we tend to find that floats through a lot of the peripheral research fields. And if we consider, for instance, earth spirits, or what we would call here in Ireland the fairy or the she, you have things such as missing time, you have mischievousness, you have abduction, and you have mutilation, animal mutilation, people mutilation. You have this conscious connection that they have with you. It's almost as if they're reading your mind as they're communicating with you.
Like, I always wear the tinfoil hat. I do. Nando, do you have pictures of me in the tinfoil hat? I have a few pictures of me wearing tinfoil hat.
Oh no, I took it down. I thought I still had it up. I must have taken it down.
And people think I'm joking, and I did put up a picture on Facebook a few weeks ago, and it was somebody. I'll find it and send it on to you. But it's like all those naysayers and laughing at the people with tinfoil hats. Now, who's laughing now? Because of all these UFOs is coming to Earth. And there's a few people of me wearing my tinfoil hat, and I need to keep some for tomorrow because it's Easter and I have to cook the ham. So I can't do it.
But you also with the Fae as well, you also have this aversion to iron. They also don't like the iron. Now, when you cross that over into the Middle Eastern world of the jinn, all those fit there as well. Yeah. When you move that across into the old gods, that fits in there too. And also, all of that fits into the UFO. And there's one thing that connects them all of it. They can be summoned. That's an esoteric practice. Call it whatever you want, but that's summoning under an esoteric practice. So we're looking, possibly what we're looking at is the same phenomena, just a different.
What do you think of the UFOs? What do you think of what's happening?
As in the modern what we're seeing in the mainstream media?
Yes.
Well, that's our technology. So there's no resistance there. I have no problem with that. That's our tech. But to try and tell me that's coming from another planet, no, that's not. Those are black budget projects that are being tested out in new weapon systems. And that's what it is. There are different signatures for the true phenomena. The true UFO phenomena is different. It comes under a different set of circumstances. But there's an agenda today that we need to swallow this new.
I kind of got excited for a bit. I'd be that person at the White House with the sign, we welcome you, and I'd be the one that would be beamed.
Yeah. A lot of that technology, the patent office already had those things already registered years ago, and probably the Air Force is behind it.
Wow.
Maybe someday.
I was in California because we use the satellite systems to track locations, which is going to be more active than others. And from our perspective, we ended up going into this high desert location in California, and we were there minutes whenever we had our encounter with a true phenomena. But I was very, very aware that what we were seeing in the sky, this thing that was flashing back to us and all the rest, was not the phenomena that was the deceptive hand of the magician, because what was more important to understand is that it was already on the ground, and it was there in the desert floor with us.
Oh my gosh.
And just to sort of with everything that you've done, I'm looking at we're talking about the forefront of what you guys do. What about the people with the filming and everything? Were they from a paranormal background, or how were they taught to deal with situations? So, because we're talking about when you're going into locations, are they prepared to what they can encounter? did you have to stop filming to tend to someone? Like, how did that work for them?
Yes, there were
place
instances. There were instances where I did have to step in, and Susan Slaughter was one of those. And I think it was in Germany where I had to step in, and it was overwhelming her, so I had to bring her back down out of that. And it was the only time in the show's history that we were at a prison in Central America, and the priest had brought this person back to the prison, and exercised them there, and it was exercised back into the walls of the prison. And it was the one time ever that I've actually recommended, I think you better get the priest back.
Wow.
But in regards to crew, there was one location I remember distinctly, and can you remember the old black and white movie of Nosferatu, where you've got the vampire with the big ears and the two?
Yeah, I know what you're on
That
about.
guy scared the crap out of me. But we were filming in the castle. It was Orava Castle, and we were filming in it. And the crew, that cameraman that worked with me, one of the days he was back, but he was up in the oldest part of the castle, which was 900 AD or something like that. And he was up there filming on his own when the phenomena started to happen, and he backed into a corner, and he's on the radio. Who's messing with the lights? What's going on up here? So yeah, there were instances when the crew were having their experiences as well, and there were things that happened. In fact, there were better things that happened when the cameras were switched off to the cast and crew. But in regards to the crew, there was very little there to help them, apart from what we would talk about. I remember the team, the first team going out, and they had their experiences in Wales, and one of the team came to my door, and she was crying because of the encounter, and I said, look, that's a one-off, it'll not happen again. But by the way, welcome to Europe. And that was that.
I don't like anything of the dark side. I mean, when I see one of your books with the Banshees, Jesus, you know, when you have experiences when you're younger and you just can't. I talk about it for years. I've talked about it for years, and I'd love your intake on it. Where I was in my teenage years, and I'd left my friend's house. It was November. I don't know what age I was, teen, and I was walking up my garden, a long garden, and my brother's friend was with him. I was going up to see my brother. So it was a November night, clear stars, no clouds at all. I remember putting my hand on his right shoulder, and I said, "What's that up there?" But I see nothing to say that. I've seen nothing to make me would say something like that. It wasn't planted in my head to say it. So I went in and I told my family, and curtains were closed. My mum had to be picked up from work. People came to the house. Jenny was given a brown paper bag to breathe in, because I knew it wasn't I knew it was something. There was 3 of them. They were like a smoky gray color, and they were like the shape of Halley's Comet. So you have round and you go into a tail, and they would have been huge. I lived in a corner house. This was across the road above a unused factory. And they were up in the sky. You didn't have to creak your head. You could just look up. So there's 2 this side and 1 this side. But they'd swim up and down, and they'd go missing as if they were going through clouds, but there was no clouds. So one again, then there was 2 this side and 1 this side, and they'd swim up and down, up and down. We stood there for about an hour and a half, 2 hours possibly, looking at these 3 things, constantly doing that. They would have been huge if they were down. They would have been taller than you, but it was just a shape. There was phone calls made. I know there was 3 people who passed away that month. And it was there was TV put on for my siblings and whatnot, and I was young as well. I was twins and so on. We all outside looking up, and there was adults and then me, and then all of a sudden one shot down, went through the hedge and went back up. If you blinked, you would have missed it, and you can see it going through the hedge. And adults were pulling me back to run in, and to this day we never knew what they were. like it was real. And I have said this as many times as people would listen to me say it. I dissected my brain. I can't ever make an answer to it, but I know what I saw. A lot of us saw it, just never knew what it was.
Yeah, the phenomenon itself tends to link people in with that particular play. And in regards to the banshee herself, the clue of her heritage is actually within the name. And a lot of people nowadays would consider her to be woman of the fairy, banshee, woman of the fairy.
Yeah.
That's not actually quite right, because she was in reference to the ancient Neolithic mounds. So it's woman of the mounds, as of the people of the mounds. They came through the mounds. Now, and that ties a lot of this phenomena in because of the association with stone. Now, if we look at the likes of David Paulides in the United States, where he has written Missing 411, a huge amount of people disappear in the United States. He's even admitted himself on record that people will disappear predominantly within boulder fields. A lot of the phenomena that we tend to see around the world now will appear either on stone, a stone plateau, cliff face, or a cave system. There's always some excess stone nearby.
Yes.
So that ties it in, and then there's the smells and everything else that ties it in, which I'll not get into at this particular stage because that's another book.
Start writing. Get it out. I have questions down here as well. I have a few questions from a few people. If anybody has questions here, I know there was somebody here that was asking a question. I'm going to roll up a little bit. Oh gosh, let me find him. Bridget's asking, what's the name of your book? I'm going to get that link up.
The Deceptions of Gods and Men is the latest one.
I'll get that link up as well.
And that's on Amazon. It's also available in audio, Amazon audio books. So if people don't want to read it, they can certainly listen to it.
That's brilliant. There's a question here now from we were talking about that place that would never go back again. Barry, what did you see through the crack of that door?
There was a torso, and I know there was a Rajnov, which was also in Transylvania. The problem that we had with Rajnov is that when we got up there, it started to bloody well snow, and we ended up getting snowed in, and the caretaker wasn't there. He was gone. And what brought me back to that tower was the ancient references and the esoteric symbolism. So I ended up going back to that tower and having a look at that particular location. I couldn't get into that room because we didn't have the keys. And part of me says, thank God we didn't get into that particular room.
Oh gosh.
But it was interesting that one of the fans, whenever I backed off the door, and I can still see it yet because the fear instantly hit me. So I reacted to that immediately. But I can still see the cameraman trying to backtrack up the stairs, and the sound lady, Nancy, was pulling on cables, trying to get out as I was scrambling because my arm had gone down and behind the staircase. It was a wooden staircase. So I was scrambling, trying to get the hell out of there. But when they slowed the footage down, they said the door was being pushed out toward me, which I didn't cop at the time. But as I said, that particular place we got snowed in, so we hadn't got access. But there was a lot happening around that, and that was very, very. It was a great case, and it really pushed us to our limits. But it was something. If the show continued, it was something I really wanted to enforce within the team, that we wanted to break that cookie cutter format. Because I flew down to Singapore and was wanting to get this location within the Bay of Hong Kong, and also I wanted to try and get us into China, to this ancient fortress at the end of the Great Wall of China. That physically was going to test the team. because I think that there was value in that, in that when we push ourselves physically, it can lead to a greater experience.
That
And but the problem was that people were disappearing at the end of the wall as well into the desert, so they were being lured away by these voices in the sand and disappearing.
That's the thing we were talking before about children. And I showed Steph and Nando about children. If you've seen a child on a dark road, what would you do? Stop? Nope. Drive over them or drive around them?
Just keep going.
Yeah. Wait a minute, she had red glowing eyes reversed.
That was just a reflection of the brake light.
I ended up getting one of those dash cams, and it wasn't for the insurance. It was because everybody else was getting this wonderful footage from these dash cams. Not a second thing have I seen since that dash cam went in.
They know.
Years.
So yeah, anything with black eyes, anything like that. No, or even just a child in general. No, like we've heard babies cry, and I want to go. And this is the location we do in the Drogheda Museum, Millmount. It's 5 minutes away from me. It's in my home, fabulous place, and we are hearing a newborn baby. But every time we ask about the baby, what we do with the phone now, I know we use the phone, but it's not like apps. What we do is I will call one of the guys on the phone, and we don't know why. It works better on WhatsApp. So I would call Alan's phone. He would answer, put it on speaker. We would leave it in the kitchen area with a recorder. We go 2 floors up and we sit in the coffee room and we call out. Mm-hmm. The responses are mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. I mean, I want to scream about them. They're so good, but there's 2 particular people. So when I'm asking about the baby, because it was a British fort at one point, Oliver Cromwell had attacked Drogheda, the Martello Tower. And so when I'm asking about the baby, we did a playback, and you'll hear a man telling us to, we were singing Ring a Ring Rosie. And a man, we had to go check the kitchen area to make sure nobody was in the building. Very clearly, like F off, because we were singing Ring a Ring Rosie. And then, I'm talking about the children, the child. They don't like me talking about the child at all. But then I keep talking about the child because I know they don't answer me, and I want to know about the child. Because I can hear the child and we can hear the dog, and me loving animals, I'm like, come on, in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. So we bring food for the dog, or we bring treats for the children, and you hear a thank you from them. Like last week, we were playing a game of cards because we heard, when I was doing a live 2 weeks ago, I said, do you want to play a game of cards? And on the live, when we did a playback on the live, you could hear a man saying, yes. Mm. So I brought the cards back, and we were setting up wine, I forgot to bring the whiskey for the card game in this kitchen area. We still have to go through that video footage and audio. Mm-hmm. But a few things happened. That's the night we didn't need. we were all awake.
And you said that's in Drogheda, yeah?
Yes, that's in my town, Drogheda, yeah. Drogheda. You can come anytime. Go to it.
Wasn't there a lady down there, as far as I can remember, she married the spirit of a pirate?
Yes, yeah. She lives up your end now. She's
Does she?
Well, no, she's not. No, where is she now? No, she's in. She's in Belfast.
Oh, I have no idea.
She's in Belfast. Amanda is her name.
I think she got divorced, though. I think she divorced
because he was out drinking.
Oh, he's cheating. Yeah.
He was out drinking.
There you go.
Yeah, he was out drinking.
I bet you're jealous now, Nando. You really would love to live here in Ireland.
I'm moving over soon. I'm going to move over.
No, you're not.
Is
no,
it?
He's not. No, he's not.
I'm only joking.
But I keep saying for yourself, Sarah, to come over to Ireland and come to the museum. I take a lot of people to the museum with me, and I'm going to say it. I've got a lot of stick for it, and I probably will again. But I like when locations are not contaminated by 10, 20 teams. It's just my team only for the last 6 or 7 years. It's been my team only. Mm-hmm. If I take people with me, they're friends or guests. Or who've watched this show, watched the lives and so on, and if they have a keen interest in it and respect the location, and don't be a plonker. Basically, I'm very strict. I'm firm but fair. Yeah. Don't breathe, don't walk, don't talk, don't chew, don't.
It is one of those locations that I would love to go to, because some of the stuff that Jenny's shown me and some of the stuff she sent. There's one EVP. I think it's in my bit is phenomenal. It's the sounds of the guns going off, but it sounds like on this EVP there is an actual war going on as you're listening to it, and it's very clear. You know, you can hear the sounds of the gun, and then at one point you hear it so close to the EVP recorder, like the click of the gun, like being clicked out to reload, and then clicked back in. And that was an amazing EVP. When I think I listened to that a good 6-7 times, and then I was getting snippets of it, and then I was sending it back to Jenny saying, "Did you hear this bit? Did you hear this bit?" And then at one point, it's like you can hear it like a heavy breathing, and it was just amazing to you know, for someone to pick up a sort of evidence. But talking about evidence, talking about the whole paranormal as a whole, you've been through this for a number of years. You've met a lot of people. What's your advice to someone getting into the paranormal now? You know, if they was to come to you, Barry, and say, "How do I do it? What's the right way? And what's the things to avoid?" What advice would you give out?
Read. That would be the first thing that I would say. Read. Gain a little bit of knowledge of the thing. Just don't go out there for shits and giggles, because that can cause issue. And teams that start up quickly and they're out for that particular reason, they may not understand that leaving that door open can attract flies into the group. And when that infestation makes its way into the group, it will eat them from the inside out. And the group will fall apart. And we see that time and time again.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So having a little bit of knowledge there is a good thing. I probably would recommend, if they wish to establish a group, maybe keep it small.
Completely.
Yeah. If it gets too big, then their issues can start pretty quickly. If they're not careful of the infestations that can happen.
Absolutely. That's brilliant advice. Yeah.
And just to follow on with that question, you know, a lot of people say different to this, but with locations, do you believe you should research your locations first to know what you're going into, or go into a location without the research? Because some people say when you research a location, it can influence what you think you're going to come across. Like you get a false, you know, sense of, because you've read it, you know, you already know what could be there. So do you research locations, or do you go in it without knowing the full history?
I think that really comes down to what you intend to do with the footage. You know, a lot of people will say to me, "Well, why do you do it? Why do I do what I'm doing?" I'm not out there to prove to anyone. The books are there, and if people want to read them, they can read them. I'm not forcing them down people's throats. And take it or leave it. And it's a case of, this is my path. This is the one that I'm on. These are the things that has happened to me. And this is how I analyzed it and how I broke it down. It may be of use to you, it may not. I'm not out there to prove to you that it's there. I couldn't care less. Because it's my path. So I'm not out to say, well, here's the greatest piece of footage ever, because we live in a technological age now where anything can be faked. And I'm continually sent photographs, and I wasn't there in the investigation. I have the context of what that photograph was taken by. I don't know who else was in the room. I don't know what the weather conditions were, or all of that stuff. So I can't analyze the stuff. And as I say, now with AI technology, it's getting to a stage now where we're probably just going to have to ignore our visual senses in regards to AI technology, because it has the best stuff coming out now. It's got movie footage, it's got photographs that can alter and everything else, and we're not going to be able to tell the difference between reality and AI influence.
Yeah, and I've been sent videos and from people before, and I kind of say, you know, it's dust.
Oh yeah.
You know,
the orb phenomena. No, don't get me wrong. There are phenomena there in which orbs can self-manifest and can self-illuminate. That is important, and we used to get a lot of that stuff within 35 millimeter. But the problem is now with the digital age, even the manufacturers of the cameras released statements to say these dust and water particles that you're seeing is a problem with the actual camera itself. The closer the lens is to the flash, the more likely you are to get orbs.
Yeah.
And the further away the flash is, the better. The less likely you are to catch these damn dust orbs. Which is just a problem with the camera system.
Well, that's it. And like you said, there are things there that are genuine. But when you say, I know I've said sometimes it's dust, and they're like, oh no, you don't know this. And I'm like, well, feck off then, don't bloody ask me. I'm not doing this talk with you if you don't listen to me. So I took a video, and so I put the light on, I have my flash on my camera phone, so I'm kind of like rubbing the top of my surface of my counter. I really should dust more often, but it worked for me that day that I needed to do the video. And then you'll see sporadically of things coming around. But some people want to believe it's family members, and you just don't want to upset that. So I say, yes, it's your grandmother. And it's not your grandmother. Pledge.
Yeah. And, the thing is, it's the same with EVP as well. The more a person isn't grounded, the more likely they are to see the faces within the dust or hear the voices within the recording and things like that. And it's also worth mentioning as well that if you read something or something's running in your mind before you capture the EVP, that can actually influence what you're hearing. What we would tend to do is if we get Class A EVPs, then no one of the team will know. So we all sit down, we put on the earphones, and we listen. And we all have notepads, and we write down what we think we're hearing. It's amazing to see the difference.
Oh, wow, that's good.
Yeah,
air pareidolia. And I love that because I do shows, and I have one coming up on the 22nd of EVPs. So I have a fantastic co-host with me or guest, and one of them is Philip Gibson from Heart City Paranormal. He's like, I love his EVPs, they're great. So we put them together and we collaborate them together, and then we play them on the show. So we let everyone, and we suggest wear headphones and tell us what do you think. I remember one time I was in the Athenaeum Museum in Enniscorthy, and I was doing this thing where I'm on video call with my friends in New York. So I said to them, right, call out on this location. I'm going to let you do the call out so you can get responses. And it happened. And then one of the guys was talking about, air, electricity, travel, transport, yada, yada, yada. So we heard the word phenomenon. I heard the word phenomenon. It was like phenomenon. So when I played it on the show one night, one of the guys, it was one word. So one of the guys said, he heard it was like a 4 or 5 sentence. No, it's one word. It's phenomenon. I heard I'm going down a shop now, to get I'm like, no, it's one word. It's phenomenal. And then we go do 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 do. Always want, and I start that up, and I did it one time and it flatlined because no one joined in. It was like that was a bit of a bomber. And so that's the ear pareidolia. So we have one coming up on the 22nd. So we're going to get the best of our bests and put them up. And let everyone hear it. There was a time when I used to be like so anal about it and say, no, this is what it said. Trust me, I know I heard it. Now I got older and retiring in the paranormal, I'm like, yeah, that's what it's saying. And I'm just tired too. I'm tired. So, but our stuff, people said before, if you have to explain what's being said, then it's not a real EVP.
Yeah, and that's something that irks me with the TV shows. Don't put on text what I meant to hear. That's a no. Yeah. When
you see that, Greg, what color do you hear? Or the words, is it thunder or rain? Thunder, rain, and it's kind of like you read the word thunder and you hear thunder. You read the word rain. I'm like, hold on, because it's suggestion, power of suggestion to you that you read it, then you're being told what to hear. So just some of the EVPs can be made out very clearly.
Yes.
And there's one of them that I have from the ITC, and it's I know what's being said. And most of the time I have to explain it to people. And then they hear it. But then that's no good because I've told them. But I genuinely, and it comes from the Drogheda Museum in Milmount, And I know that kitchen area. I know the two guys in there. I know what they said, and it makes sense of what they said about what happened in the kitchen. So I get it. I understand it. And that's why I continue on with what I heard, and I'll continue on with it. The question, what the reply was. So it's like personal. It's personal when it comes to that. But yeah, some of the responses, I'm like, what you hear, Scooby?
Yeah. Yeah, it can be tricky sometimes, that's for sure.
And I used to be saying, like, oh, listen to it. It's right, I'm right. But now, like I said, I've calmed down. Any questions, Nando, before we anything you want to talk about, Barry? Anything?
No, I think we've pretty much covered everything. And yeah.
I want to ask one more question about skinwalkers. What do you think of skinwalkers?
Well, Skinwalker Ranch is in itself is. I was there in 2019, and it is. I was interested in Skinwalker because of, number one, the rocks, and then the phenomena that was happening on it. But the magnetic anomaly that appears at Skinwalker that we've seen from the satellite footage is about 80 miles long. So it's more than the ranch itself. But the focal point is the ranch, and I'm aware of a particular farmer or rancher there that was interested in one of the properties adjacent, and he ended up going to look at the property with the intention of buying it, and it was a wreck of a place, but he ended up in anyway and having a look around the house, and the dog was with him. He left the dog outside. He was only in the house 5 minutes, but he came back out. The dog was turned inside out.
That's just bloody crazy.
So it's the phenomenon. The phenomenon is very, very intense, but it will target the dogs first. And people will say, well, why does it target the dogs first? Is it because the dogs are psychically sensitive to these particular phenomena? No, the dogs can smell them. That's what it comes down to. The dogs smell them quicker than we do. And the dog's sense of smell is exceptionally acute, and these particular things do not like that idea of us getting early warnings, and that's the way it goes. But the Skinwalker Ranch itself, it has a long history, and in fact, it's quite interesting to see that a lot of that particular history ties into the exploitation of oil and gas, and there's a lot goes on out there that we're meant to look at. This hand, don't watch that one.
Yeah, look, a squirrel. Where? Over there. What's over here? That would be me. I'd be like, where's the squirrel? And I was talking before about taking animals to locations with you and so on, and I kind of, there's some places you just couldn't, and I don't think I'd put a dog through it sometimes. But I did say the earlier K2s would be a cat in a carrier cage, I kind of wanted that for I look like Elvis. I kind of wanted one of those for Shane's Castle. Look at what's going on with my hair tonight. I'm like Elvis tonight. Anyhow, so cat carrier in the box, it's like as your K2 or your M-Pod. If it goes, that's crazy. You walk back out of those tunnels in Shane's Castle, that was the earlier days. That's how long I'm in the paranormal world. You bring your cat in the cat carrier out. If it screams, you're getting closer to something. But
there is there's been some good research been done there, and in fact there's a particular signal that seems to appear within not only UFO sites but also haunting sites as well. And it's a small split-second signal that bursts forward, but it's below the sensitivities of the normal Ghostbuster EMF detector and all the rest. We can't detect it with any of that crap. So this particular signal is very, very weak, but just before the phenomena happens, before it breaks through, we'll get a spike, and that's worth keeping an eye on. That's worth investigating, because even in some of the particular buildings that is known for phenomena, it would seem that even some stray noises that would appear that initially we would say it's just the building settling.
Yeah.
Comes with a spike.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
there are advancements being made quickly, but a lot of the phenomena has been happening for centuries and is just repeating. And unfortunately, we are a civilization with amnesia, and so that's where we are.
One last question, something I'm really interested in is attachments. What are your thoughts on attachments?
Well, attachments in itself, the reasons that we can get attachments are legion. You know, there can be many different reasons. You could be walking down the street and get an attachment.
Yeah.
But as I say, bright lights attract flies. So it's important to keep an eye on that.
I've always been called a dim light, not a bright light. I've been called a dim light.
I talked before about iron, and iron is absolutely fantastic when the energy wants to manifest physically. They will keep away from you with the iron, but attachments don't work that particular way. So there are particular processes that we can see when the attachment has made its connection, and there are patterns that are followed, and that's something that I talk about in the other publication, the influence, and what to see with that. But there are things that we can do to counteract that, and that's look at our diet. We are what we eat, and diet is a big thing when trying to understand the signals and everything that's coming through. And some of the processes that attachments will go through, some of the triggers that they will go through is creating isolation for the person that it targets. Paranoia is another thing which aids the isolation.
Yeah.
Also, the food, they'll be put on a curve that slowly operates, that will take them off healthy foods and on to crap.
I am possessed if that's the case.
And their immune systems will begin to lower, which allows them to encroach further and further and further. And the paranoia, the dark thoughts. A lot of the thoughts can be turned around with the likes of EPA and DHA. So you'll get that in omega-3, and it is absolutely light. It works at lightning speed. 15 minutes in the system, and it stops the release of the stress hormone. That can directly influence the attachment. Really? It's interesting that those experiments that were carried out in a high security prison, I think it was in Denmark, and I talked about it in the book, and it was a very violent prison, and prisons are perfect places for this insidiousness to fester, and these people, the prisoners, were put on a diet, and they were introduced to omega-3, and with 75% of hate crimes stopped.
Wow.
The influence.
I'll go to the chemist tomorrow night to get omega-3. It's going to be sold out.
It's amazing how the food and what we drink can interfere with our spiritual aspects.
Well, that's definitely what's true. I'll definitely get the omega-3. I just know when I've been in locations such as Duckett's Grove was one of them down in Carlow, and I remember it was my first time there. And then when I came home, I did my audio work and so on. And then you'll hear this, Jenny. I'm like, hello, you know. The first time there, who knows me? And I kid you not, every location I go to, some of them could be new. The old ones that I go to all the time, I like to do repetitively investigations. I like to repeat locations. Like for 4, 5, 6 years, I'm doing the same different locations: Leap Castle, Redwood Castle, Drogheda Museum, Millmount, and Athenaeum. And but the 1 or 2 places that I've just done for the first time, you'll have my name being said. Even in my home Billy Big Balls sat here one night, 2:00 in the morning, no children here. Mama had a gin and tonic. So I said, Billy Big Balls took out my recorder and started doing a call out in my house. I heard my name being said. And you heard Jenny, like a DVP. But then thankfully I got it on the recorder. And you'll hear me in the recorder. So I have it on both DVP and EVP. And you'll hear me saying, did you say something? Because I'm saying, I know you're here. I know you're here. And then I heard my name, and then I said, did you say something? Did you try and say my name? So there's a man apparently with me. I remember doing a show in America one night, probably 2 or 3 in the morning, and we're all talking, having a bit of a giggle. Then we kind of stop for a second, and then I'm smiling, and then all of a sudden I hear this, Jenny. And I was like, looking around at everyone, did no one hear that? So I watched the playback, and you can hear the static. It sounded robotic. Before, and it sounded robotic again before my name was said. Like, okay, you got me. I heard you, but no one else heard it. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Is it here? I don't know. But I do ask him to turn the heating on in the winter before I get up. Make the house warm.
When you called out to it, did you close the door? Okay.
No, was that a bad thing?
Yes.
I didn't close the door. No, I didn't close the door. There's a draft. So, but the thing that happened in Carlo, my name being said, happened before I called out in my house. My sister had seen someone in my house. My daughter seen this black ball going across my bedroom wall. She's 19. She's special needs, and I know my kids. I've got the lie detector radar with children, and I'm like, don't lie to me. So I asked her the same question for a few years later, and she says the same thing. Like, it was true. So you say the same thing. If you lie, you'll mess up. But it was like, I can't, about that size, just going across. And I said, now, is it fast? Was it slow? Was it medium? And it was like medium. But silly Jennifer, I have opened up recorders in my house. I've got 4 dogs and 5 cats, and
I try not to bring my work home, and sometimes it happens. So even the best of us can fall victim to that. In fact, just the other night, I was woke by the dog coming to the side of the bed in the middle of the night, and she was letting me know that there was something wrong in the house, and I got up and never put a light on, and I came to the foot of the stairs. And she was right behind me, looking down, and she was letting me know. And she started barking, snarling. And I'm looking into the darkness, and I'm going. But I went down and had a look around, and then I walked around the house as well, but nothing there.
Do you do that movie thing where something happens and nobody turns the light on?
And usually, I'm screaming at the television for that. Switch on the goddamn light. And this was one of the occasions where I didn't.
Oh Lord. Listen, it could be like 2 in the morning and I wake up and I need some water and I'm like, Jess, my daughter, are you awake? Huh? Are you awake? Oh no, you are now. Go get me some water. I've done it. I'm like, oh sorry, I thought you were awake. But she wasn't. I'd woken her up. She's up there now. She's probably mailed their comments saying, Ma, I heard what you said. Yes, it's true. We are coming up to the end of time. Where can people find you, Barry?
Well, they found me in Sligo.
Listen, I love Sligo.
They can find me on Facebook, and I don't have a huge social media presence now. I said I have a lot of things to do and a lot of research to do. So it takes me all over the place. But people can find me on Facebook. They can find the books there on Amazon.
Right. I'll get those links put up right now. I remember very quickly, I stayed in, myself and one of an ex-team member, we're going to go over to Boston, to Salem. It was only for 4 days, so the flight was too long and the space of time wasn't worth it. So then we said, right, we'll go to Edinburgh. We'll go to the vaults and so on. And that kind of didn't go place. Guess where we went? Sligo. And I booked into the Clayton Hotel.
Oh my God, the Clayton. Yeah.
We booked in the Clayton Hotel. Let me tell you, I didn't sleep for 2 nights and I had a lot of gin and tonic. 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm doing shows in America just to keep me awake because Aidan picked his. We had the room next to each other, and so because we were put to the very end of the hotel and it wasn't in the old part, I rang up the reception, said, "Listen, we travelled from the east. You know, can you put us in the older part?" So she put us right in the center, which was brilliant. And so I was checking out his room, Aidan's room. I was checking out both of the rooms. So he wasn't beside me next door anymore. He was down the corner and round to your left. Yeah. So I felt his room out and I felt my room out to see, do I feel anything? Where are we staying? Jenny's little radar detector. So his room was nice, compact and small. And then you had an arch, and around the corner was your coffee making and your table. And he goes, "Jenny," and my accent's going to be really bad. And he goes, "I think there was a doctor's office there," because it was a former asylum. He goes, "I think there was a doctor's where patients come in now." And I'm like, "Okay, you can have this room." The other room that I picked was huge. It was a family room. If I wanted to get out, do you ever see that movie Room 48 or something like that? It took him like 10 minutes to get out of the room. So I'm like, well, let me see how long the drop is down. And so on. So when you walked in, when you open your bedroom door and you expect the hallway, no, I've got this big hallway on the outside with a chandelier. That's my hallway. My bathroom's out of my room. And I'm like, this is just going to be a long crawl out of this room if I need to get out. So you could close the door, but I kept the door open with a chair in case I have to go through the door. And it's a pretty big door that it would have hurt a little bit. So anyway, and then so a local from the Sligo gave us a tour of the hotel and whatnot. You know, he used to work there, and he said, "This wing over here is the most active." And Jenny goes, "That's your side, Jenny." And I'm like,
the Clayton's well known.
It's a fabulous. I have to say, Sligo's fabulous. We went to the cathedral. Really. We went to the children's, the famine area, and we brought flowers with us. Really fun. Sligo's a beautiful town, and we went to this huge graveyard. I don't know where it was, but I used to holiday in Mayo, and Donegal's next. And because I like to holiday in Ireland, I love to holiday in Ireland, so I can take my dogs with me and so on. And but Donegal's next, but Sligo, I'm telling you, it's a beautiful place.
It is, and you know, we had when Prince Charles came across, or King Charles now, when he came across with Camilla, and they went to the castle up the coast there where the relative lost his head. I know that the guards they were checking out. There was a car that was parked at Yates's burial site.
Oh. Wow.
And you know, for security purposes, they needed to make sure that the place was clear. And came back down the road again, and this car was still there. It was a rental, and it turns out that it was someone who had flew in from the United States, and was sleeping on Yates's grave. And that's an old esoteric practice to try and pull out information from the grave, the knowledge of the grave, and. Of course, the guards, they says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Well, I'm only here for the night." "Well, you can't stay here. You got to go." And off he went. But had he have done his research, he would have found out that Yeats, he was enveloped with the whole esoteric thing and all the rest. But Yeats died in France, and he was put in a communal grave. Now, by the time they came back to get his bones and reinter them, he was mixed up with everybody else. The only thing that he was likely to incorporate during his stay on top of Yeats's grave,
I know,
who recipe for a good baguette.
Who are you sleeping above? Probably the person there said, "Hello, do I know you? Would you like to get off me?"
We got them all.
Funny. That's funny. You work hard and play hard in the part. It's just great. My team, I have a team of 3. You know, less is more, I think, and we work.
Absolutely.
Together. You know, and I'd say, don't wear those jackets that go when you're doing stuff. My jacket does that. And Louis said, "Jenny, what was that sound?" And I'm like, "Probably my jacket."
Yeah.
You know, don't breathe, don't walk, don't stand. Why are you walking around? Where are you going? You know, and so we do all that work. But we are going to end the show now. It was fun. It was really interesting. It was fun. As an insight that I will carry some of them with me, as in like no sugar. Sorry,
there you go.
No sugar, no eating salad before we go, to keep that goodness up and fresh
There
food.
you go.
Let me just see. The Moon Woman show here now, guys. Hold on. Okay, that's it. So we're going to say thank you, everyone, for watching, liking, sharing, commenting, and questions. Barry, thank you so much for giving up.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. Have a great evening.
It was a pleasure to talk to you, Nanda. Thank you so much for jumping in with me tonight as well.
That's all right. I'm always happy to help.
Now, where am I next weekend? Next weekend, I'm not here next weekend. Next weekend, I'm going to be in Dublin. I'm going to Sam Smith concert. Please don't judge me, okay?
That's it. The call's ended.
Woo. And then the week after, and the 28th, 29th, we're going to be in Redwood Castle and Leap Castle. A lot of work. Oh, I love the places. But we're going to bring in the background. I'm going to say thank you so much for watching another fantastic show. We will be back on very soon. Thanks a million. If you want to stay there for a second, Barry, and we'll just bring it in the background and do the ending of it. Talk to you later, guys. Good night.
Bye, everyone.